Hi guys. I cocked up pretty badly actually with this next video. Um, I usually have more screens available to me than I do at the current, and I totally forgot to turn my splash screen off when I was doing my Twitch stream. So the entire play was done with a Battle for Azeroth splash screen up, so you could literally see nothing at all. I will put time codes in the video for important information or parts of the video. Otherwise, the method Race to World first, day 9, them repulling all the bosses because of the mythic reset, that is visible and is persistent throughout the entire clip. So yeah, for some reason that ended up being over top of the splash screen, so you can actually watch that. Otherwise, I'll just give the time clips, and you guys can just skip to the information that I was giving, because this was my last stream for this tier at the present time due to the fact that my subscription ends. So yeah, I do give information about what I intended to do for the future. So I'll leave a point in the description field below to let you guys know what those key points were. Otherwise, yeah, it just really isn't worth watching. Otherwise, okay, and on with the show.
The Rust Bolt Resistance needs you! Repel Mechagon's forces and help put an end to his machinations!
Sure, why not? G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to Wattspark Plays World of Warcraft. This will be my final Twitch stream for an entire month. I am actually not going to renew my subscription until it's August 26th, which is the day just before WoW Classic's released. So when I actually start restreaming World of Warcraft, we will be doing Classic, and I will probably just jump back into BFA every now and then. But mostly I'll be doing Classic. Due to me having a fair bit of work to do later tonight, I'm just going to basically do world quests and stuff like that again today. When I come back, hopefully, yeah, in the month's time, I'll do LFR runs just for shits and giggles, and we'll have a good old time. The Method Race to World first is still going. They're just re-clearing after the reset. At the present time, it's playing Lady Ashvane. I will put that on in the background for yous.
K was getting 22 stacks really early on in the encounter.
Alright,
getting a combat res and then just immediately
this will be my
dying,
first run with the flying mount,
so I
so
agree with
this
now.
should be
He's
interesting.
dead with 13 stacks. The combat res has been used on him. I don't know if he's going to immediately accept this, and I don't think that he will. He's going to just sit on that and wait for the opportune moment, and likely that we'll be seeing an exchange in pain suppression upon res, because it's very risky that, you know, with no heals and shields and so forth already on him, that he might spike all the way down and immediately have to trade out the AMS. It looks like he's picked it up now, and here it is. Here's his time. He's immediately dead though, without managing to soak everything there. Oh, did he have a good round then?
Well, I think it was still a fine round. I think Scarp's not supposed to soak at that point, but he ends up going in and taking one. He's one of the characters who's able to reduce a bit of damage when he needs to due to I believe the barrier is relatively strong, but also he has the ice block if needed. But yeah, I mean, so this is usually when we will see the Bloodlust come out as well. We haven't seen it quite yet. You want to use it for the last this third barrier, so to say, to kill it off. We don't actually have any death, although people ended up going really super low there. We have a 39% on the boss. So Method still has not used Bloodlust. So I assume that this is because they're gonna end up using it probably at the very end. Now we see him charging his trinket, and he's gonna be they're gonna use Bloodlust here, and now they're using a late Bloodlust. Right?
That's
and
a lot of
reason
spec
for this
rates.
might very well be that they're gonna try to make sure Well, now they're gonna end up wiping, but they were gonna try to use part of that bloodlust after the shield as well, because they ended up having 39% left on the boss. That is a lot of health to choose through. So if they can delay the bloodlust a little bit and use it a little bit so they have like 20-30 seconds of the bloodlust doing shield,
Okay,
get
so I've got
the shield
everything
down
around
in
here.
proper timing with the extra gear, that should be perfect fine.
Right.
But they would have these like 10-20 seconds left on bloodlust when they actually go into that vulnerability phase, because otherwise 39% is a tall order to manage to do during one vulnerability phase. 35, a lot more reasonable, and 35
ground
plus
mount,
bloodlust at
people.
the start, maybe that could make up for the last few percentages.
I'll pull
but
it
yeah,
out a bit
ends
later.
up being a little bit of a straight up wipe there. Roger Brown absolutely crushing the damage on Lady Ashvane. Maybe they're thinking we should have brought more hunters. Maybe we should. As long as they get the bow, they're good.
It's all about that bow life. But yeah, you know, just kind of elaborating a little more on what you were saying about the bloodlust. It kind of is like that, you know. So the way that the offensive cooldowns work out in some cases, I'm pretty sure it's all the cooldowns that are on a 2-minute timer. Because I remember having a discussion about this, like the other day when people was actually progressing on it, is that cooldowns are kind of like coming back into alignment, just as if they use bloodlust at that point in the fight, that they can kind of get the bubble broken going into that transition as the cooldowns are coming back up. So then they can get another like 15 to 20 seconds of bloodlust there to line up with the cooldowns, and then that really, really excels the effectiveness of those cooldowns in that final burst phase push. That's how we was kind of interpreting it when we was looking at this the other day, and it's kind of like it's looking the same, the timings that they're popping that bloodlust. So they're really trying to get the most out of it by doing so, rather than kind of like, hey, let's bloodlust and let's get the entire shield down so we can get into the last phase and just pop cooldowns. You know, cooldowns that excel cooldowns is usually the way to go, right? Stacking these offensive abilities and raid-wide cooldowns and such, definitely the way to go. And I feel like that's the right decision to make in this instance. It's the most effective way and time to use it relative to how difficult the fight is as you get towards the end.
With the extra gear, I would definitely have liked to see a lot better than 69% after the first vulnerability phase. But they could just choose to use their cooldowns at a later point. Although I don't really see any point in not using it in the first vulnerability phase. If you're not using it there, would you use it on pull? Well, that would just shorten the first phase, which is kind of irrelevant. The main point and the breaking point that you need to hit for the first shield is that you break that shield before the I think it's a second wave of bubbles hit the boss, and you'll easily do that with the extra gear. So that is not an issue whatsoever. You probably won't use any cooldowns to make sure that happens. If that is close to happening, you can start kiting the boss, and so that you have the cooldowns coming up for later on as well. But then again, if you use them on pull, they're usable 2 minutes in and then 2 minutes after that. So it could just be to keep the cooldowns coming every single time on cooldown, so to say.
Do you know what? I think they should Vantus rune it because Twitch chat says so.
Yes, Vantus rune it. Yeah.
Just get it done. Vantus rune, easy mode, easy fight. Let's go. Because they don't need it on a jar, right? Because the Vantus rune doesn't do that much, obviously.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So I don't know why they're being so stupid and not just clicking the button, right? But hey, you know, we're not them, right? We're not in the hot seat. You know, if they was as good as us, they'd be sat on the couch, right? So that's all we know. So yeah, but then again, Trekkie, I was wrong. It wasn't a one and done attempt.
No.
Feels bad, man. So chat, you didn't show enough support there. You didn't channel enough energy. So feels bad for you guys. You guys didn't pull through on this one this time. So we're gonna have to see them go at it again. Yeah, and I'm really impressed with, like, well, not more impressed. It's more kind of like shocked to see Roger just absolutely lording those meters, and I quite like to see that as well, because, you know, we spend so much time seeing Shadow Priest, Rogues, and Warlocks at the top. It's nice to see a different colour up there, and, you know, it's not even like I'm a Hunter main or anything. I like the underdog class, you know. I'm definitely a guy who loves an underdog story. So seeing Roger get that bow that everybody's been so highly anticipating getting, he got it, and then immediately afterwards, pretty much, he's lorded the meter. So
really proving.
Go on, Rog. Go on, Rog.
You needed that bow, and that bow was worth it. Yeah. So it's like it's a big thing. Like this is what I was mentioning before as well. Like weapons, for some classes, can be such a huge benefit to be able to actually be lucky to get that. And yeah, unfortunately, like last week, they weren't able to get a mythic bow, and they went into heroic with a full roster stacked of basically hunters, and they still didn't get a single build in the train.
Yeah.
So being like missing a weapon like that is very unfortunate, and that's where you, with the coins, kind of come in and kind of soften that blow, because you're able to just coin and hopefully try to get those pieces that are very important that you may be missing. But
Yeah. How good is short-term memory? It's good.
what did you ask?
Damn it. Okay. I mean, can you recite 5 minutes ago accurately?
No.
Because there was a time, and it's the same here again, right? So what we've just seen is when they get that bubble thing. I forgot what the name of the ability is called, where they have to stack so they can kind of cleave it down when they get encapsulated in the bubble. Earlier, we just seen there Roger Brown. He kind of went to one side, and he just went to use his aspect of the turtle and immuned it. And that was fine, so he didn't have to stack, so they didn't have to force to break the bubble. But I'm not sure who it was before who kind of come off to the side, but wasn't a class that has an immunity, and they just ended up in a bubble away from the other guys. And I wanted to know, do you know why that is? Is that part of the strategy, or is that just a mistake?
So it might be a mistake. Usually you try to stack up, and if you have an immunity, you basically go off a little bit on your own and to the side, and then make sure that you use your immunity. We do have a weird situation where the bubble ends up being an incapacitation,
Yes.
which means that warriors are actually able to berserker rage it. So, and I believe when we did this, we had a warrior tank, and if he got every single bubble, it would start setting off, because the bubbles would come on like 40-second cooldown, and his cooldown would be 45, something like that. So every now and then you would have this bubble that he couldn't break instantly. It would have to wait a few seconds.
Yeah. Okay.
And that might have been that you saw it spawn and outside of the raid, and then a few seconds later it might have been popped. For example, if you get it gets 2 in a row, for example.
Right.
That might be a cause for that. But I didn't see that particular situation. But yeah, once again we see the vulnerability phase. We see Method at 69%. I don't know. I'm guessing they're just using a lot of cooldowns on pull instead of on the first vulnerability phase, because they're gonna come up. Maybe they're gonna be able to use the cooldowns once more, especially if it's like a 2-minute cooldown. Maybe they're going for, yeah, an extra 2-minute cooldown. So the last burn from 35 or 39, hope it's gonna be really lower than 38, 39. I hope they can get it down to 35. Last push or last coral phase, vulnerability phase rather. It didn't seem like they were gaining that much damage, because they had a lot of players doing mechanics, a lot of people having to go out and soak these corals, and it turns out to be quite the DPS loss to have to do that all the time. So
Yeah. We're talking about this a lot on a lot of fights, but more specifically to this fight, is that 35 at that point is so crucial, because that unlocks the execute for the Shadow Priest and Beast Mastery Hunter, which I believe is the spec that we're seeing Roger the man himself play. So, you know, that's really going to tap into the increased height and damage from those classes' specializations. And the reason why that's so important is because even though it's 35% and that large bubble comes up, they can execute the bubble off, right? They get the enhanced damage, that flat 10% from Twist of Fate, from the Shadow Priest, and obviously the enhanced kill command from the Beast Mastery Hunter, and that'll chip away much faster at that and force that shield down quicker without actually using any additional offensive cooldowns to kind of breach that gap, which is why it's so important to make that threshold.
yeah, absolutely. And I think Twitch chat just wanted us to say bubbles a lot more. So there's a lot of bubbles in this fight, so we're just gonna see it all the time. Say it all the time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's double bubble, right?
It's a bubble, bubble, and bubble. So just bubble,
yeah, so
bubble,
what happens,
bubble.
like here, you can see there's a lot of these green things on the floor. These are going to explode, and what we're going to see is, after that, anytime now, we're going to see bubble, 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 briny bubble.
Briny bubble.
Big bubble, briny bubble.
the shield bubble.
Do you ever do that tongue twister when you was a kid? Maybe it's just like a thing that English people do, where it's like red lorry, yellow lorry, and you have to say it as fast as you can. What about big bubble, briny bubble? How fast can you say big bubble, briny bubble, big bubble, briny bubble? Go on, Trekkie.
Not as fast as you.
Go.
I say bubble a bunch of times. That's why we call this
bubble, briny bubble, big bubble, briny bubble, big bubble, briny bubble, big bubble, briny bubble.
Alright, we're seeing another second intermission here, and the shield actually going up to 38% again. Again, exactly the same DPS as last time. They actually straight up just gonna go in a wipe here, because they have so low DPS in this fight, and they end up having one person dead as well. And they just not be able to rest him for. I mean, they're able to rest him right now, but it's too late. They had one DPS too few when it comes to that phase, so they're just really lacking single target damage here. It might be because they're kind of hindering themselves having a much more Ashara-oriented comp compared to first skill comp, for example.
Yeah. I don't know. He needs to just pull the trigger and get some damage right. I mean, it's easy enough. It's easy enough. Just do some damage, guys. But you know, let's take this wine back a bit, go a bit more serious. What they're running right now is literally the composition they want for Ajara, right? Give or take, maybe 1 or 2 plays, give or take. But they've brought the key components in, right? I mean, you look in here, you've got 3 rogues, but we've seen 1 in Ajara actually.
I think we saw one for the majority of progress last night. I went up and ended up raiding when they were doing the last few pulls. I couldn't quite keep up if they ended up swapping in an extra or not. Definitely not going to run 3 rogues for Ajara unless they've come up with some scribe tactics earlier on. But Naga was in on his DK on Ashara. No matter if he would be or would not be, they would use him for this fight, just as he's doing such a key role in this fight with soaking the bubbles. And
target something first.
yeah, so you would use him anyway, just so that you get through this fight and wouldn't have to relearn. Have someone new person just have to relearn the whole fight.
Yeah, I've seen like the most awesome thing I've ever seen in chat. Monka, if she sells seashells on the seashore, can raiders see fish spells before they hit the floor? That's a tongue twister. Thank you for that. That's content. That's dad jokes, right? You see, it even makes you laugh now. You get in there, Trekkies. 3 months now. 3 months. Then you're going to be full on dad jokes. It's going to be awesome. You can join the club. I'm not dad, but I'm getting there. Like I love those jokes. Maybe it's the thing when you just get that old, right? I don't know how old you are. You look much younger than me.
I'm 30 this year.
Same. Yeah. Wow. October,
yeah.
Same. 16.
No. 30th.
30th. Ah, so I'm 14 days older than you. So yeah, I'm like the real dad around here, guys. You know, I'm obviously older. so yeah. But yeah, he's kind of swapping the groups around now, just organizing things up a little bit. When I do raids and stuff, I just kind of always match the colors. I don't like.
Yeah, I mean that's important as well. I do a lot of viewer raids, and a lot of times, you know, you just invite everyone, and it's like, okay, I need 5 minutes. I gotta sort everything, and it's like, oh, this is the monks, and this is the paladins, and then usually there's always like 7 demon hunters.
Obviously.
For some reason. So I mean,
because that stacks, the 5% stacks, right? So bringing 7 demon hunters is just the best thing to do.
So if you have five rogues, it's really pretty, and then 5 demon hunters next to that. But then if you have a 6 demon hunter, you kind of like, do I put him on the group on the left or to the right, or you just kick him? And it's like, well, I mean, sometimes it's a demon hunter, just kick him. You already have 5 other players able to supply the buff, so the chances of a target not having that buff up for any amount of time is very, very low.
Yeah. I just want to see them get this boss pulled and get into that second phase, really, so we can actually start figuring out what's been going wrong. Because, like you said before, you feel like that because one person died, they kind of just threw the towel and fell over. I don't know. I wonder if they could find a way to muster some more damage. And it's funny that I kind of say that to a degree because I believe it was, I think it was JTH when they was on progression on Gorgonzola, right? And they got into the phase 2 and it was literally 10% off in damage. And we was kind of like, look, they just need to find some damage from somewhere. Don't know why they can't find the damage. And literally next pull, they found damage. No, sorry, it was Queen's Court because that's, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how Queen's Court worked because we were wiping there ourselves on with one mob, one of the bosses at 3%, the other one at 10, and it's like I don't know how we're supposed to find the damage for this. It's what we found.
Literally found it just in one pull. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it got to the Enrage, but they had everybody alive, and it just smashed it. It was crazy. I feel like it's just a case of surviving as long as possible and killing it on the Enrage until the reset. That's kind of the going trend that we saw every guild doing. I don't think anyone's killed it when it didn't get to the Enrage. So yeah, that's just again like that damage check thing, right?
Yeah, we ended up Vantage runing it because it's like, well, a lot of our raiders thought that there's no way we're doing the damage check without Vantage rune, so we might as well Vantage rune. Obviously that meant that we wouldn't be able to Vantage up for Sakul. And that would be a little bit of a, like, would hinder progress a little bit, but not too much. But then the Vantage
experience is a cool fight, though, right? Rather than just not at all.
Oh, absolutely. So we ended up Vantaging Queen's Court, and then suddenly it was like, oh, we kill it 5 seconds before Enrage, and it's like, what made the difference? Like I didn't feel like we did anything but different. The DPSs, I'm sure, got more used to the fight and got a little bit more min-maxing out of it. And it's like, yeah, you just like sometimes you find that DPS, and a great, absolutely perfect example of that I think is Method doing BOD in Jaina. They go for a full-on nuke strat for killing the boss from 30% to 5% in the last phase, and we watched them do that, and it's like everything looks to be going fine, but then suddenly it's like, oh well, they wipe an 18% on a perfect pull from what we see, and it's like, oh, how are they gonna find the extra damage? But it turns out everything wasn't perfect. They weren't playing perfectly.
Yeah.
There was some movement that was just fixed a little bit around. It's like every pull just inching closer and closer and closer. Eventually, just actually end up getting the world first. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of damage you can find in just learning the rotation, the mechanics, the positioning, and like just the flow of the fight just gives you so much damage.
Yeah, I think the key word there is the flow, like you're talking about, because if you really get into that flow, that's how you really figure out the best way to min-max your damage, and that's where the extra damage is being found. You know, I've painted examples already on the stream about kind of like, if you're on a movement phase, if you can kind of move into the place you're supposed to be in 4 seconds relevant to 5, you're gaining an extra 1, a whole second's worth of damage, which when you're doing this kind of DPS is 44 to 50k, give or take. So that's kind of how people are finding damage, by consistently moving faster and more accordingly.
Yeah, I don't quite understand here what Method are struggling with, because partially it's the damage requirement in the first phase, right? Because they're getting to 70.7%. That's like a really low, really high percent still. And they should really be able to push that down to 60, 66, 65, I think. But like I said, we don't know quite what they're thinking here as well with the with min-maxing cooldowns and everything. It might just be that everyone has so much more gear that they're just like, oh, we're just going to use everything in the first phase, so we're saving it for the second shield, stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, that now the second shield has been brought down. They are going to be DPSing him in the second vulnerability phase. We have Roger down, however, so they're going to have to wait a bit to resurrect him, I guess. Sailor's UI does not quite show it. But we're going to see him, I'm sure, get rest ASAP. Although that means that they will not have rests for Naga all the time. So it's going to be, they might just shoot, they're probably actually just going to leave Roger Brown dead on the floor, because they're going to need that combat rest for Naga.
Yeah, they absolutely have to. And, if they don't have a combat rest for Naga, that's the strategy out the window. So they're just going to have to try and do this without the damage of the new bow pog. So, but like you say, they were struggling with the damage checks at the start of the fight when he was alive, so I can't really see this being a kill, especially dying so early on. It's not as bad if you die a bit later into the fight, because you've had a lot of damage throughout the fight in value. But dying earlier on, it's such a loss. But actually, we spoke too soon. Yeah, there's the combat res on Rog.
The combat res goes out, but they're on 40.5%, so they're basically doing the same as Lost Ball 39.
Okay.
And maybe they're going to try to just focus more on Naga, making sure that he survives a little bit longer. Blood might come out a little bit earlier as well, just to make sure that that he is alive, the healer's able to keep him alive during the bubble phase when he needs to soak them as well. So we'll see a little bit on the fly thinking here, I think, from Method. Otherwise, they might just
big bubble
end up
little bubble.
Lots of bubbles. Yeah, 40%, that's going to be a tall order to be able to do as well. But maybe they could keep it together. Maybe they could deal with an extra bubble phase as well, soaking a few extra ones on the raid instead of putting them on Naga. He only has 13 stacks. That's not that bad. We'll see if he ends up taking one. No, the tanks actually get them now. So now you're going to try to spread some of these out on the raiders as well. A little bit more healing intensive, but if they can keep everyone alive with a little bit extra gear that the healers may or may not have gotten, because they weren't used at the start, so they probably might have about the same gear.
Most of the res are down.
The 16 stack. You're gonna need to deal with 2 more waves of bubbles, I believe.
Yeah.
Wave 3 coming out here. This is the Bloodlust now. Hopefully Naga can stay alive now with all the healers. Having the Bloodlust, being able to
drop there as well. Naga was in that.
Oh,
so
don't freeze. Okay, there we go.
Naga's down though.
I don't have 15 Tempest Tide.
He's definitely going to need a big cooldown exchange such as Pain's.
They're going to be soaked these, otherwise the shield goes back up.
Yeah. So they are soaking that now. So as this shield breaks, this is going to be really important for Naga to come back alive to absorb. No, sorry, when the next shield goes up, right? That's when. Wait, I've lost track. There is another shield now, right?
Oh no, there's not a shield. So they're gonna beat this.
Yeah,
they're gonna kill
sorry.
this shield, and then hopefully they can beat that before the next bubble phase, because that's gonna be too much damage at that point, basically.
Yep.
They should be able to. They just need to do this 3 times big bubble. And I don't know why he needed to soak that, because the shield was actually technically down. But yeah, they have 38% to go. Some people are dead, but they're gonna try to nuke it all they can here, and that's gonna be a little bit rough because they don't have Bloodlust anymore. They might have saved some cooldowns, and maybe they might be able to pull it off. Now they obviously don't need to do mechanics, so they don't have to spread out, run around all across the room, and can just stand still, nuke the boss. Yeah, 5 people dead, 4 DPS dead rather.
Yeah. It's not looking good at this point in time. I can't see a kill coming out of this, so I'm just going to ask you this question. In your honest and solid opinion, do you feel like they're just not playing the scripts? Do you feel like they're kind of taking the boss for granted at this point in time?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to see where the big difference in terms of damage is coming from, or where it's not coming from, rather, because they would really expect them to have a lot more damage this reset, but actually showing lower numbers in terms of the vulnerability phases. So I would assume that is because they've changed when the rotation of cooldowns go out and stuff like that. But yeah, there's going to be a 12%. Is that 13.1% wipe? I mean,
No,
they obviously
they
ended up having 4 people, 4 of the DPS dead. That's not supposed to be dead. That's a big difference there. But yeah, I mean, the first vulnerability phase, I would really love to see that a lot lower than 60%.
No, I was really expecting it to be around the 63, 64% mark, because as I said, when it was the kill, I believe it was 66 or 67 they got it to last week, right? So this week we should be expecting more than that, but then again, there's always a stipulation of this isn't the same composition that they had last time.
No.
So, you know, every class is, you know, has its own ways where it does more damage on certain fights than another. So maybe that's part of the issue, the fact that they're not running as much of an optimal comp specifically for this fight, because they want the loot on specific characters. And they kind of thought, well, with the extra gear, we can make up that damage just through gear, and it's not translating quite as well as they got to the encounter. So that's where we're missing this DPS that we're kind of expecting to be there and was presuming. I mean, even we was presuming it, right? And it's clear that they was presuming it. So that goes to say now what's the approach gonna be? Obviously, Vanta's Room.
Well, that's true. But we also knew from the start that this boss was gonna take 4 pulls by the 4-4-4, 4-4-4.
Right,
4-4.
we did.
So it's the 4th pull. I mean, that's
4th time lucky, right?
Yeah.
4th time lucky. And speaking of which, I just want to take a quick glance over here, and I can see Chaos Theory Game tipping 5. Thank you very much for that. Leaves a smiley face. Very, very happy man there. And we've got Anonymous who's tipping $10.25, leaving no comment. Self-a-sack. Thank you very much for your contribution here. So yeah, what we're going to do, Trekkie, we'll just watch this pull. Then that means that our time on the couch will come to an end. So let's just get through this pull, and then we'll be handing you guys over into the capable hands of the next guys that are going to be coming in. I don't know who they are because I can't see them, but they will be here. I promise. They are always here. But this is it. I want to witness a 4th time lucky because of the 4-4-4-4-4-4-4-4-4, right? I mean, this is it. Carry the 1. 4. This is pull number 4. Let's go. Pretty pumped about this. And you can see Zalia. He's like, you know, pumped out of his mind right now. You can just tell by that face that he's just so ready and raring to go. It's kind of like, yeah, he's just ooh. Pump.
I mean, we know
that yawn, you know, that explains it all.
We know that they went in with this knowing that they might have a little bit of issues with it, because they're trying to go with a little bit of a setup that isn't the optimal for this boss maybe, and going with the setup so that at least some key important people might be able to get some loot from this boss. I believe this DPS trinket that drops on this boss, that's pretty strong, pretty decent. And so you definitely want to try to bring in some classes that you're going to use for, or want to use for Ashara for this fight, just to be able to get that loot, or maybe even coin it if you're lucky. But yeah, first phase here, we're going to see the shield basically drop down very quickly. Hopefully that didn't actually empower. We can't see on the his user interface the shield right now. We're going to be able to see it later on. When the health actually has dropped a little bit, but right now when the health is full, it's not showing the shield. It should go down right. There we go. We should go down right now. This is the timing you want to have for it. Like I said here, there's not really any point investing cooldowns in this part because they're still able to deal and break the shield before those first bubbles comes in. Because that's kind of like, that's the soft enrage kind of part of the first phase. And you can prolong that as well by moving the boss a little bit. So, or even soak one bubble here or there. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like Method's kind of not doing the very methodical approach here or whatever with the corals, and everyone's just kind of running, losing a lot of DPS by doing so. They might not need to, or might not feel like they need to, but we're gonna see the shield come up in about at least 15 seconds. So maybe they're looking good on track in terms of damage now. They're 74%, 73%. Still more than 10 seconds before the hardened carapace came up. There we go. Now 7 seconds. They are at 70%. So this is looking to be at least a little bit lower than 69, but still pretty. Oh, there we go. 66. 66
on the dot. That's
on the
beautiful. So, because that's where they was at when they killed it last time, right? And I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying, because you know I've got like short-term memory loss, that nobody's died yet, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's died yet, so we still got all the combat reses available. 2 stacks of waterlogged on Naga, looking really, really good. This is by far the best pull so far because it's the 4th pull.
Yep, this is a good pull. I think we have Swagstep taking an extra stack of the waterlog, which he shouldn't really need to. It feels like a very weird choice putting 2 stacks on a person, even though it's a rogue. A rogue is very good at survivability, but holy, dropping really low there. So we really don't want to have to invest a combat rest on him. He does have some cooldowns, so he's able to use to just make sure that he survives. But we're hopefully going to see the second shield be broken here in a bit. We're going to have to deal with at least 2 more waves. This is the first wave here, and then one more. And then to get into the second vulnerability phase. And yeah, they did 34% damage last time. Will they do the same? That will mean they would hit 32%, which is actually higher than they did on the first kill. So yeah, I mean, that's going to be super interesting. I mean, if they end up wiping here for a lot, they might just go for and swap back to classes they basically just used for the first kill. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, with basic like splitting the pie evenly, we've done 66, so we see 33, then 0, right? In theory. In theory, obviously, you know, it doesn't translate that way, guys. Don't take my word for it. But there's a good chance we're going to see them get sub 35 now, right? That's the aim for the next go. So 33, I mean, that would just be mathematically so pleasing if they got there, because it would be really, really well equally balanced out throughout the entirety of the fight. So this is the key moment now. This is it, where they're doing actual damage to the boss. Just got to make sure that the mechanics are dealt with well, that they can break as many of these corals as possible, and that Naga can do his absolute best in dealing with the bubble, so the raid can focus their time and attention onto maximizing their rotations to rip through this boss's health, because they need to get that sub 35, because if that ever happens and someone dies a bit later on, the extra damage that they gain from being sub 35 before that person dies kind of makes up for the bit of the DPS lost towards the end. So it's all these small things coming together which really does help close the kill out on Lady Ashvane, even in week number 2. So maybe this is going to be the kill, and we're going to find out soon enough whether they're going to get there.
They should definitely hit sub 35. They're already at 34.0, so they're making good work of that. And then Hardened Carapace is starting to cast now. They get another few seconds. This is going very well on track, 30.6%. So yeah,
yes,
this is really good. So
this is sub 33.
I don't know. I don't quite know what was going on the first few pulls, but this is on pace. This is what we were expecting. Like I don't understand what was happening the first few pulls. Maybe it was some cooldown rotation was wrong. Maybe some people forgot to equip the gear. But this is where we want to be. This is better than their first kill. And basically, we gotta make sure that we.
This is all of it, huh?
They end up killing the shield as well without any issues.
Yeah, so Naga's going to be doing his best here to kind of soak some of these bubbles. He doesn't want to soak too much, because at this point, without having with the shield, you know, he needs to be doing it. But with his stacks how it is now, it's quite dangerous. And the reason that he's not looking to take more stacks, Trekkie, is because he doesn't want to die, and the extra DPS that he can deliver is required, right? This might be why they're meeting these DPS checks as well. Not saying that he's doing that much damage by himself, but he's been alive a lot longer throughout the entirety of this fight.
It is true. Obviously, he does provide a little bit of damage. He provide a fair amount of damage to cyclonic trinket as well, which is the Rust Bolt reputation trinket that you end up getting, and this deals a fair amount of damage. But really, like, I think we're gonna expect him to see him die this time around here with the 19 stacks. Yeah, indeed he does go down, but it's fine. You might not need him for this wave. This wave would be one of the waves here you're going to be able to actually just soak with players as well. They already have a lot of debuffs on other players. We saw Naga get rest, use the speed pot, run through everything, and they're going to need to deal with one more wave of these bubbles. That's going to be the really deciding one if they live or die here. And the shield still has a fair amount of health left, actually, so... But yeah, one more bubble phase, and then the last one's going to go into the boss. Maybe they might actually be able to skip that and soak just the close ones. Yeah, they're going to break the shield. There we go. And they're going to have all of these go into the boss, use all raid cooldowns, everything. If there's a button you haven't pressed, you're going to be pressing it right now. We have the barrier go down, another 30%. This should be very doable for them. Like, there's not really anything super big going on right now. There's going to be some mechanics that you can kind of skip.
Yep.
A little bit unfortunate barrier there. They had one barrier left, and they just kind of put it on the ground, and they had to instantly just leave it because of the uproar.
Yeah, that would cost them, and it looks like they did there as well. Maybe if they could have survived that at low HP if the barrier was still available. So that really, really, really does suck, unfortunately. But let's take a look at what percentile this ends up on. Can they finish it? Can they close this out? The rep Paladin's in bubble right now.
Yeah, but
the shield is up. The game.
The shield is back up.
The shield is back up.
No point. But Oculus is pumping the damage. Yeah, no, I didn't quite catch what was going on. That was probably the explosive. Maybe they had the beams just go through the whole raid there.
It was some kind of mess at the end there, guys.
I think they had the big barrier as well, following big bubble following them in the end. That was where they were supposed to try to stand in a barrier, and the up spirit.
Yeah, that was a Dragon Ball Z moment when you got Goku, who's got Spirit Bomb, and he just got Spirit Bomb chasing you. Everyone's like, run! Get it now, quick!
I didn't actually call for a kill. I just want to make that clear.
But we did. We said fourth boss is going to be attempt is going to be the kill because of the 4-4-4-4-4. But guys, on that note, it has come to the end of our time here. For now, you're probably going to see me again in around 12 hours. Not quite sure when everybody's going to see you again, Trekkie.
I'm going to be on in 3 hours again.
Oh, you're going to get the pleasure of being with Trekkie again in 3 hours' time from now. Everybody, thank you very much for all of your contributions that you have done today and throughout the entirety of the week thus far. We will be right back shortly with the next guys on the couch here to keep you entertained. We'll see you guys soon. Stay tuned.
Ow.
And welcome back to the Race to World First here in lovely Krefeld, Germany. I'm joined by JB, and we bring you back directly into the heart of a Lady Ashvane maybe kill here. This is looking like a pretty strong attempt. You saw his death here out of Naga, but that's intended. He is supposed to die. He's soaking the waterlog debuff for the rest of the raids. And we are now commencing our burn on the final phase here. The goal is to kill the boss before the third shield comes back up, so this is make or break now. And you can see here we are 5 pulls into this Lady Ashvane re-clear, and this would be a pretty big coup for the guild if they can get this done in 5 pulls. So we're now just attempting to beat the next cast of the Hardened Carapace. If we can do that, I will be here for my first ever Method kill. I have not cast one yet on the couch.
Me too, actually. Yeah, I haven't gotten a single kill, but although it is a re-clear, I'm gonna be happy for it. Anyways.
All right, so getting some staggered deaths here, but one's a healer and one's the intended Naga death. So still in the running for it here. And
oh, come on.
All right, so getting the branding bubbles here, get those out.
Yes.
And there we go.
Oh,
My first ever method kill for the Eternal Palace. I did get to do a few back in BOD, but that is the first time
Warforged.
I've been able to pick one up on the desk here this week. So you can go ahead and congratulate me.
No
Chat,
rest for the spawn during
honestly,
my
it's a bigger
playtime.
deal for me than it is for them.
That would mean
I deserve the kudos, as does
that
Martin.
one should come
Because,
first.
you know, the casters deserve, every once in a while, we deserve nice things. You know, it's nice for the guild to have good things, but sometimes I want things too, so.
We kind of came in here and just joined the game.
Yeah, exactly. So the catering shows up here like right at noon most days, which is kind of right on the split for where the cast, or where we do a shift change for the casters. And so this time the lunch showed up like literally at noon. And so Trekkie and Bookmark were kind of standing up from the last cast, and they're like, hey, do you guys want to go on? And it's like, well, lunch just showed up, and I don't really feel like waiting for 3 hours to eat. So I was like, let's just go grab lunch real quick. So we're like kind of eating, and I'm like keeping one eye on the Ashvane pool, and like I see him start doing the pull, and I kind of eat a little bit faster, and like I take another look, and I'm like, just like slam it in my mouth and come sit down on the couch. I'm like, I'm not missing this kill. I swear to God, I'm not missing this kill. So, all right, so we get Ashvane re-cleared in 5 pulls, which is very brisk pace. That is exactly what you want to see out of this guild on the re-clear today. The name of the game is getting back to Ashara as quickly as possible, but we need to get through all of the mythic bosses to do that, and I imagine we'll see some heroic splits tonight as well. So a full day's slate of content in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, we are gearing up now for Ashara. Yesterday we had a couple of there wasn't too much Ashara going on yesterday. Obviously there was a lot of Ashara, but at the same time there wasn't a lot of progress going on. The guys wanted to try out a lot of different things, because there's so much you can do in that fight. There's so many different positioning. There's so many attacks you can do now with the mass route, which we've been seeing.
Damn it.
And yeah, just a long, rough fight overall. So hopefully we can see them push in a little bit further today.
And we did see Limit get the sub 50% first kill to do so. They were caught slightly off guard by the fact that the adds in Rage at 50%. Previously on lower difficulties, it was a 40% in Rage. So fight even more. For as much time as we spent talking about how difficult Ashara looks, maybe she's even more difficult than we thought. So this could be a boss that takes some time. There's been, obviously some speculation out there. How fast do we think it can die? I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, maybe Friday, Saturday. But honestly, this fight is just like,
yeah.
And you're not seeing like really any like hot fixes come out for Ashara. I think there was one today about, if I heard correctly back there, I think they changed it so that static shock can no longer target or charge spear can no longer target someone with static shock, which was important because of the positional requirements for both of those.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and so making kind of but I don't feel like that was necessarily like a huge deal. I don't remember hearing guilds necessarily say like we're wiping because we're getting overlaps on charge spear and static shock. So a fight that Blizzard is content for the time being at least to kind of let it lie and let the guilds struggle through it. As a more casual raider, I'm scared to death. This is a boss fight I want no part of, and whenever you see guilds like that, obviously it's great for the race to have a boss that lives this long, but for the rest of us that eventually have to do it ourselves, terrifying, utterly terrifying, and I'm not looking forward to having to do it myself.
No, I mean, speaking about the hot fixes, I went on my phone this morning and yesterday yesterday night actually, as I got home, I was like, okay, let's check out if there actually were any hot fixes to, like any nerf specific, not hot fixes. But I was kind of surprised to see not even like any. Usually we'll see Blizzard put in the first reset, maybe lowering the damage, the health a little bit, or making changes to broken character class specializations and stuff, but nothing yet. So yeah, they're gonna let it go for a little while, I guess. And yeah, I wonder if that implies that there's nothing really special going on in the later stages of the Ashara fight, or if they'll just. Or if they just think that, hey, they're not going to progress like really far anyways for another week.
Yep.
So yeah, here you go. But I mean,
Yeah,
Blizzard wants
that
skills
is
to
a
be
pretty
able
rare
to
drop.
down a shard as well within time. So
I'm not
2
sure.
weeks is like
Not
you're not sure. Yeah, okay.
Not
okay.
sure.
Maybe this is one of those times where they when they just want to overtune a boss and let her rip for a while.
I am waiting for the, like, you know, you've been hearing tier after tier that a lot of this stuff has been undertuned until like the last boss. You know, there was a lot of talk about BOD being just a single boss raid, that it just came down to Jaina. And at some point, you know, you wonder if Blizzard hears that kind of feedback and they're like, oh, you want to see a hard raid? Like, oh, you think all this stuff's easy. Okay, we'll have at it, bud. And just, you know, drops this slate of ridiculous bosses. And you're like, hey, these are pretty difficult. You guys thinking about nerfing them? No, I'm not thinking about nerfing them, dude. You think this stuff's easy? We'll have fun with this. You know, struggle on this for 3 weeks. So
I mean, hey, we asked for it.
yeah, and exactly. And they're
Now
like,
we're complaining.
oh, you think you want hard bosses, huh? Well, here's some hard bosses. Enjoy. And you know, the other thing is, you know, we sit up on the desk and, you know, talk about, you know, well, I guess I kind of feel like at times Blizzard is sort of contrarian, and you know, you do wonder if we get up here and we're like, man, Ashara is looking really difficult. I feel like Blizzard has to nerf this fight. I feel like Blizzard could have been like hovering over the button to press like the nerf on Ashara, and then they're like, wait, you're trying to tell me I have to nerf this fight? Never mind, I don't have to do anything, man. This fight's staying exactly like it is. We were going to nerf it, but now that you tell me I have to nerf it, I'm not going to do anything.
True.
So, yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if that fight stays as it is. It certainly seems a lot more difficult than fights that we've seen in the past, but I don't know. Like, maybe that's just, you know, maybe Blizzard wants to give you, you know, the community an idea of, like, here's what a hard boss could look like. Maybe next time you'll say thank you when we put out an easy one.
Yeah, to kind of fight the complaints a little bit. But I do think we have about 8 guilds on Ashara now, which is not really much if you put it into perspective. Being the second week, I assume we'll see a lot more guilds actually pushing up to Ashara either today or tomorrow, with the Chinese guild, for example, having the reset tomorrow. So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see, and especially JTH, who's been pushing a lot. I think they were even further in progress, the method now on percentages at least, but it's Ashara, and like, I don't even know how you're supposed to measure progress on Ashara now. One tactic might take you down to below 60%, but that might not work in the long run.
Yeah,
but
it's not viable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it looks good on paper, but in reality, it may not be. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah. So again, we are doing the Mythic Reclear here. The EU reset happened this morning. NA had their reset yesterday. Asia's reset will be tomorrow. So we're seeing the Method guys come back through on Mythic, and Reclear will probably see some heroic splits later tonight, I would imagine. I believe we saw those out of Limit, and I don't know that you're saving those for anything in particular going forward, so probably try to get as much gear as you can here on day one before you start up the Ashara attempts again. Orgazoa is a fight that gave some difficulty because of the healing requirements. I imagine with a week's worth of gear, this becomes an easier fight from the healer, because that's basically all this fight comes down to, is can your healers keep everyone alive with a week's worth of, because Method attempted this last time before they did the heroic splits, so they have a little bit more gear from Mythic, more gear from their heroic split, and now more gear from their Mythic Reclear. I could actually see this being a fight that gets substantially easier this week. The healers have more gear for throughput, everyone has more HP to survive, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see this one shot or killed within like 3 pulls or something.
Yeah, I think so too. And another thing that plays into account is they've been here before. They figured out the healer cooldowns, and I think they're running the same healers as last week. So they know the fight. The cooldowns, the cooldown management should be fine as well. Maybe, like you say, it might be maybe 2 wipes or something to kind of get it hashed down to perfection. But yeah, it is an easier fight now overall. And it looks like they are swapping out some people from Ashvane to Orgosoa, which only makes sense now, right?
Mm-hmm. Now I'm seeing some questions in chat. How many attempts did it take for Ashvane? A paltry 5. 5 attempts for Ashvane. So if you are wanting to measure Reclear progress, if you think that that's some kind of indicator for how guilds are stacking up on this Reclear, that I believe limit was 12. Took 12.
Midwinter one-shot it.
Midwinter one-shot it. I think we have a new Dark Horse candidate for Ashara World First. Wow, one shot on Ashvane.
But they did really good on. They were one of the few guilds that I think they got like world 4th or 3rd on Ashvane. Actually, and that's when we saw Midwinter just popping up last week, and we were like, oh hey, Midwinter is making a return.
Yeah, and you know, it's probably a good time to point out that as part of this Race to World First, we're doing 24/7 coverage, and since we legally cannot keep these guys like chained to their computer all day, they do eventually have to go back and sleep. And so when we have those periods of the day where we don't have the Method guys in the studio, we a lot of times throw as much as possible to other guilds that allow us to use their points of view. You can type !partner POV in the chat to see the other guilds that we're working with, but as part of that 24/7 coverage, we want to get as many other perspectives as we can from other guilds. Midwinter was one that allowed us kind of mid-race, once we saw that they were, you know, taking names. We said, hey, can we watch you guys' stuff? Like, this is pretty good. And so they allowed us to, very generously. So they're definitely a guild that we might be popping into later on if they're getting some good, like, Ashara attempts in. But certainly a Midwinter, you know, a name that people have come to know in the rating. If you've been following the rating scene, a guild that has been exceptional throughout sort of the history, last decade or so, you know, a name that's come up repeatedly. They took a step back in the last, you know, few years to be more casual, so it's really exciting for those of us in the NA to see another guild like Midwinter kind of rise to the forefront and really show what NA players are capable of.
Yeah, I mean, every region has really been pushing hard this race, and JTH. So yeah, JTH has been doing, like I said earlier, really good. But they've been pushing a lot of hours as well. You can see like how tired they are, and I wonder if that's gonna play a big role, like in terms of like mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion as well as we're moving into the second week here, or if they're just like straight up machines, just pushing it.
Well, sleep is definitely a big, you know, I think it's one thing that professional sports organizations have started really appreciating the impact of is sleep on your performance now for, you know,
I'll just quickly switch and do Najatar for a little while. It'll be the first time I did Najatar with a flame mount, so it'd be interesting to see.
But even for gamers, if you try to run on, you know, 5 hours of sleep,
well, it's fun to repair.
night, it's going to catch up to you, and you may not even realize it. It may not even be a thing that you realize that you're starting to become more sluggish, that your reactions are slower, but it does happen. I mean, they've done studies that have shown that if you don't get, you know, like a full 7.5 hours of sleep at night, you just do worse on like reaction-based tests. And so I think a lot of guilds have come to recognize that trying to run on low sleep schedule is really just going to do you more harm in the long run, and they do make an effort to get as much sleep as possible for these raiders. The raiders don't always take as good advantage of it as they could. I know some of the guys in here were saying that, you know, even though they were let out of the studio at like 1 or 2 in the morning to go get sleep, they don't actually end up falling asleep till maybe like 4 a.m. or something. So you can lead a cow to water or a horse to water, but you can't always make it drink. But making the best attempt possible for these raiders.
Yeah, as I was making my way home from this morning shift, back to the hotel, I saw a couple of players just walking really tiredly to the studio here, and they actually had an early morning today compared to the other mornings because the reset was at 9 a.m. so they were called in at 9 a.m. But I think I even saw Sailia coming in at like 9:40 or something like that. Just seeing him walking really tired, and I was like, hey Sailia, how's it going? And he was just walking past me, and all he said was like, it's an early morning.
Yeah, Zalia's been one of the late risers.
Yeah.
We do have, you know, you can't tell. It's interesting just from the amount of time you spend in the studio. You can't kind of tell the routines of some of these guys. We have sort of the same crew that shows up a bit earlier, sort of the same crew that wanders in maybe a little bit later. So you do get an idea of what these guys' schedules look like.
Kana is always here first.
Kana, Deep Shades is another who's in here pretty early every time. Sko is in here at a good hour. So yeah, some of these guys, you can tell they're slightly more morning people. Some of them maybe not so much. So we're getting ready here to do Orgazoa. I suspect we're just kind of playing with comp and making sure that you're getting, you know, there's always going to be a decision you need to make here on reclears, whether you try to put the comp in that can give you the best shot at killing the boss, or whether you put the comp in that has the most loot needs. Because obviously the reclear, you know, top priority for reclear is to make sure that you've got good gear going in, but you also don't want to spend, you know, 15 or 20 wipes on a boss just to get, you know, ideal gear. You have to strike a balance there.
Yep.
So probably playing with which classes they want in so they can gear, but also make sure they're not wasting time here.
And I think that's what we have, as you can see on the raid frames there. We have Kana in the bottom right corner, and he's usually a DPS, but he's here as a healer. So probably for the gear, I assume. He's already pretty decked out though with his gear. If you've been seeing it, I saw the guys the other day looking through his armory on stream, and it was just ridiculous. Yep. But you can get those Warforges and sockets, of course, although he already has a lot of sockets. But yeah, you want to make sure you get all the Ashara people geared up here.
Yep. So getting ready to do an Orgazopal, and I don't think this will pose too much of an issue for the guild. Orgazo should go pretty quickly. Queen's Court should go pretty quickly. The next big challenge will be Zakul, and certainly I think there's probably the expectation from the guild that Zakul is potentially the biggest obstacle to getting back to Ashara. So
he also got a little hotfix, by the way. It's a tiny one. You can't get hit by the tentacles. Yeah, as you enter the Delirium realm. I think. Here we go. Pulling.
All right, so Orgazo, pretty straightforward fight in phase 1. You are going to be getting, I mean, really the primary mechanic on this fight in terms of damage is this incubating fluid that's coming out, and you can see on Sko's raid frames here the debuff that's going out on the raid, and this will cause each player who's taking it to take substantial damage. You have this dribbling I-core that drops down. You want to make sure you don't stand in that, as it will kill you. And most of the rest of the fight is just making sure that you stay spread out, because the boss will periodically cast Arcane Current, which will deal damage to everyone with the fluid, and also chain it to anyone near them. So you want to make sure that you're not chaining it, because every person that has that fluid is just taking a ton of damage. And the fight is pretty much just like stay spread out, don't chain the fluid, and it's now just a healer check. You can see here that Method has brought 5 healers. That's been a pretty standard comp for killing this fight. They also have 3 tanks in. It's a fight where there's not necessarily a race to anything. The fight doesn't necessarily become a lot easier if you push faster. So Method opts to take a very safe and conservative 3 tank, 5 healer lineup to make sure they can handle this damage.
They have 2 tanks actually.
Well, they've got Narcoles.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
they got Narcoles tanking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I was looking at Mog actually. Oh.
Yeah, so they've got Just Wait and Go on their Brewmasters, and then Narcoles on Prop Pally.
And they were running 3 tanks on Orgosoa last week as well, right?
Yep.
So just to make it a little bit easier to deal with the ads.
And they've played around, I think, with a few of the different third tanks. Prop Pally is one that may be useful here, because Prop Pally is notably able to do quite a bit of healing on other raid members. So in a fight where healing is as critical as it appears to be on this fight, Prop Pally may actually be able to be pretty useful with. I don't know if their spell warding mechanic works on incubation fluid, but they may be able to throw out some clutch spot heals. So essentially what we're doing now is racing to 40%. 40% causes the boss to transition to phase 2, and it will reset every fluid stack in the raid. And that's really what is the issue here, is that you can watch, for every person on the raid frame that does not have incubation fluid, you see their health just, really stable, not doing anything, not moving at all. Every person that has the fluid's health bar is just going wild. So this is now just a race to get to 40% before the raid gets overwhelmed from the fluid stacks. And about 60% here is where I think we start to really see the healers open up. If you're paying attention to the healing frames, or the healing meters down at the bottom, a lot of these healers are sitting at somewhere between 40 and 50k HPS. We will very quickly see some of these guys jumping up to 75, 80k HPS. The healing required in this last 20% is incredible. And there's really no way to avoid having fluid on most of the entire raid. You can't outplay that. It just gets cast frequently enough that you're going to have to deal with most people having it.
Yeah, and just seeing these ads go down, as more and more people get the incubation fluid, and you see the Arcane Current hitting more and more players as a effect of this, you have to time these ads when they die to make sure you soak them to make sure you kill them and don't really time them badly to get with Arc and Current, because that's a lot of heavy damage coming in at the same time.
Yep. And if we, I don't know if we could get a swap over to Zalia's perspective here for the end of this push. This is going to be, you'll be able to watch Zalia's perspective here would be fantastic for seeing just how much healing you're having to pump out. You see Jeeth has jumped over 70k HPS, Josh sitting at 70, Potter sitting at 65k, and the healing that's coming out in this phase is just, and you know, the boss still has 3% left to go. Now, if Method can push this to 40% with no deaths, which I don't think we've had any deaths so far, and if they can get this to 40% with no deaths, I think we were looking at a one-shot here. So the boss will be transitioning 40% here. You watch all the fluids disappear. Now, really, it's just make your way down the ramp without dying. Can't touch those purple things. Those will kill you. You can get hit by the swirlies. It will knock you back, but everyone needs to make their way to the bottom of this ramp before the boss gets interrupted.
Well, that's just mean.
While you're on this ramp, you're going to die. And if you don't interrupt the boss, you're going to die. So you need to be quick down this ramp. We've seen some of the Shadow Priests have issues getting down here because they're kind of slow. But looking like there's still plenty of time left on this cast. I think everyone will be able to safely make their way down the ramp. And we'll see here on this interrupt if everyone lives. Okay, yeah, this should be, I mean, I think we're now looking at a pretty easy one-shot here. The gear has helped, I think, significantly with making that healing check easier. And now it's just burn the boss. There's not going to be a lot happening at the beginning of this phase. It's going to be the only additional mechanic down here is that there's new Naga ads that need to be killed. But honestly, I think we'll see the boss dead before anything gets too hairy.
Yeah, I mean, this is looking way, way different from last week. I don't even think they actually skipped one of the last arcing currents, which they usually stacked up and used a barrier to kind of avoid all of that heavy damage, but we didn't even see that right now. So yeah, this fight should just be a piece of cake right now. We do see the ads coming in, however, so it might be fun to see them deal with that.
Yeah, I think this is the only thing down here that becomes dangerous.
Yeah,
is like
that
this,
didn't
big
do
Hulk
anything.
He's soaked. He does a big AoE ability. And make sure you have enough people stacked in it that doesn't one-shot. But otherwise, the remainder of this fight is make sure you get some interrupts on the caster ad. And I'd be pretty shocked if we had a wipe at this point.
Since we have 5 healers, it should be very, very... Okay, not very, very, very easy, but it should be way easier.
Yep.
And as you can see, there's not a lot happening with the raid frames here. People are staying up. Tanks are going pretty low though, but that's to be expected.
Cleared most of the Naga ads. There's just a Myrmidon left. It's going to be dying here in a moment, and then it's pretty much just burn Orgazoa down for 20%. So we now have what I imagine will be a fairly nonplussed kill here, where just kind of work everything down and don't do anything dumb, and we get an easy one-shot re-clear of Orgazoa.
Which will move us into our second boss kill, JB.
And we're just cranking them out now.
Yeah.
Now we're just old hats at this.
Yep. Just heading it. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, we're most likely gonna get Queen's Court as well, because that should be a very easy boss now for the guys as well. Especially with just more and more gear racking up, and yeah, that's more of a mechanic fight if anything. And all the weak Rs and everything has already been programmed and set up, so.
Yeah. So now you're seeing the fluids on the entire raid again. So healing here is gonna be kind of difficult, and you did see Vitlin go down there. So this will, I may have spoken too soon, this will get a little spicy here at the end. And if they slip up on one of the mechanics from the Nagas, that could end up doing like a cascade death. But at this point now, with Orgazoa touching 5%, hopefully some of the healers have their cooldowns saved. And as long as people like catch this soak correctly.
That's a rough current.
Yeah, that's, I think they'll be able to eke their way. I think they'll be able to eke their way through it, but it's not going to be the cleanest Orgazoa kill.
No, I mean, about 5 people dead, 6 people dead there. They should, okay, maybe not actually.
Ooh, maybe not.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man.
Oh, no. It's a 1.2. And only tanks up. Oh, man. Oh, JB, we cursed it.
Maybe we're not good at this.
Yeah, we caster cursed it.
Maybe we're actually really bad at this. Well, chat, that's a lesson in overconfidence.
Yep. And that's our confidence right there.
Our confidence there. So my apologies to everyone here that got really excited for an Orgazoa one-shot. I know that I certainly led you to believe that's what we were going to be seeing, and that's on me. That's my bad.
I'll take half of the blame. Don't worry. But I've been jinxing a lot of things lately. I think I have one of the biggest caster curse out there.
Yeah. So pull 2 on Orgazoa. You know, as I said, when we first started this, I said I could see it that I would foresee it dead within 3 pulls. So
you did.
If they can get it done within the next pull or 2, still at a good pace. This boss was by no means a pushover last week. Certainly more gear, definitely a big help on this fight because it's really just a healing check. But the downstairs phase, I think, kind of snuck up on the raid as far as how much healing was required there at the end. So, and again, you know, we do have Kana in as the 5th healer this time. No disrespect to Kana, I'm sure he is a fantastic healer, but he's not a main healer. So there's probably going to be a slight drop-off in terms of healing output by having, you know, that's an idea. The goal here is to get, if you can support it as a raid, the goal is to get some of these DPS mains playing healers so that you can get more DPS in the raid to funnel loot to them. So if they can squeeze by with Kana playing Resto, then that's one more DPS player that they can have in on this fight to get loot to them.
I mean, if you look at his HPS down there in the bottom right, you can see that it's not that high, and that's because he's DPSing the early stages of the fight. So that's also an advantage.
And Resto Shaman is very good for that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're stacking some of the igneous potential traits as a Resto Shaman. You can do a ton of single target. And on a fight like this, where the healing ramps up slowly over the course of the fight,
it's not too bad now.
Yeah, like at the beginning of the fight here, you're seeing most health bars, for those people that don't have fluids, there's just not a lot of damage coming out. So here at the start, healers can really open up and just focus on DPSing. You have the paladins essentially covering the raid, and the disc priests and Resto Shaman allowed to simply pump damage. So hopefully that allows them to push to 40% in a timely fashion, and maybe save some healing cooldowns for downstairs, maybe save some defensives when we go downstairs.
Yeah, and I wonder if they kind of felt the confidence as well there, as it was looking very, very good. And at the end, they were maybe just leaning back a little bit, like, all right, this is an easy fight. And then
maybe they were listening to us.
Yeah, they probably were. They're like, hey, the casters know that we got this, so we probably do. But this time, maybe there'll be more button smashing.
Maybe they turned off the stream and they're like, I'm not going to trust JB and Martin when they say we're going to get the kill. I'm going to make sure I get it. So, all right. So again, mechanics on this fight, you're seeing on Sko's raid frames there, the fluid debuff, that is the by far most damaging portion of this fight. As those fluids go out, they are continually cast on more and more members of the raid. And as each one of those goes out, the healing required in this fight goes up dramatically. So basically, you are racing to get to 40% as fast as possible, because 40% allows you to drop all those fluids. They're going to stay around the entire time until you get to 40%, and then when you get to 40%, they all disappear. Otherwise, you see occasionally the blue circles that come out on the ground, the dribbling ichor. You need to make sure you don't stand in that, as it will ruin your day. And then the boss periodically casts Arcane Current. You need to be spread out for that, as standing near other people will spread fluid to nearby friendly players. So a lot of the fight is just about positioning, and then it's just a monster healing check.
Yeah, and as you can see there in the raid frames, a lot of people have the incubation fluid right now. So we'll be seeing a lot of damage going out here by the boss. But we have 4 priests, 2 of them being healers though, so I don't think we've seen a barrier used just yet. So previously we would see the power barriers being used around the 40% mark for the last Arcane Current, but now they can kind of use them way earlier to make sure there's way more safe before actually getting the 40%.
I'm seeing some requests in chat. If production could throw this to Zalia's perspective, as this is a very notable healing fight, and if we could take a look at what the healers are having to go through for pushing the end of this phase. Boss is sitting at 47.5%. 40% is the magic number, and until you get to that 40%, this fight is going to be quite the nightmare for. Here we go. Now here's Zalia's perspective. you see here just how much damage. You watch those healing meters. Everybody's pumping now. And this is a big healer check for guilds. If you don't have a strong healing core, you're going to struggle with this fight.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I was going to say that's going to hurt.
Now, we've talked a little bit in the past about the Ashara staff. And I think I'd be really curious to see on the healing meters how much that has helped right here. The Ashara staff causes players to gain a stacking buff throughout the fight. And if you drop below 10% HP or mana, your staff basically explodes, dealing a ton of healing and damage to everyone in the raid. Like healing to all your friends and damage to all the enemies. And you've seen a lot of guilds attempting to stack these staffs as much as possible, because each time that staff goes off, it's basically like a raid healing cooldown. It's basically like a revival from a monk. And so if you have a raid with a bunch of those staves, if you get in a spot right like that where everyone's dropping below 10% at the same time, the staff just and you have a bunch of healing explode on the raid. And it can be like having several more healers in the raid to cover that kind of situation. So I would be really curious to see what the healing done from the rest of the raid, the non-healers, was for those of them that are using the staff, because I have a feeling it saved a bunch of deaths right there.
So how often did you say it procced below 10% health or mana?
Yes, below. Anytime somebody drops below 10% health, well, not anytime, but when you drop below 10% health and mana, your staff goes off. Now, I don't know what the cooldown of it is, but assuming that several members of the raid simultaneously drop below 10% right there, if they were all using the staff, you just have this giga explosion of health.
How many players do you think has the staff right now?
No, I'm not sure. I want to say that they may have like 3 or 4 members of the raid, but it may be more than that. I'm trying to remember. I've heard various numbers from different guilds, and I'm struggling now to remember which guilds were which. But I know Kana was looking for that when they did their male split last night. I don't think he got it. But any of the casters that can use stabs right now are looking to use that staff, even if it's a DPS downgrade, just because the amount of utility that it gives the raid in terms of a safety net for when people drop low. So it acts both as kind of a, that's what I'm looking for, like a prevention of, like a death prevention thing, where if you drop low, you don't die. But you can also intentionally proc it if you are, like, a lot of these hybrid classes have relatively small amounts of mana, and they can just spam like one spell to drop their mana below 10% pretty easily.
Kind of hover it around like the 20% mark and then trigger it at will.
And so it can either be something that triggers when you're low, unintentionally, or you can intentionally trigger it by like spam. If you're like a balanced druid, you can spam like regrowth and drop your mana below 10%. So just a lot of different ways you can use that staff, and it becomes tremendously useful to the raid to have a lot of them stacked up.
I think we've been seeing a couple of those very high, very, very strong items. I know that there's 2 trinkets, one of them being the damage trinket, the beam you get, and the trinket of Ashara, which increases your primary stat by 3.3k.
The caster one is a huge trinket.
Yeah.
So
and will probably play a big role in the Ashara fight.
Now, raid's looking pretty healthy. We don't have a lot of stacks out. This feels like we have just a lot more damage than we did last time. But, okay, so here again you're seeing somebody drops below 10%. If you have that staff go off. Now, I don't know if everybody's staff is off cooldown yet from the first use of it, but that's the kind of situation where when the entire raid drops low, one person hits 10%, staff goes off, everyone gets... I think that thing can crit for like 100,000. I think I've seen it crit for 100,000 healing. So I mean, it is just a monster thing when it goes off if you've got stacks. All right, so getting the 2-shot on Orgazoa, and this is the kind of consistency and speed you're looking for. Okay, Chad is telling me the staff is a 10-minute cooldown. So depending on how many people's staffs procced up top, may not have had anybody's up coming back downstairs.
Naga getting a weapon there.
All right, so a 450. What was that?
445 mythic, 200 mace. Not Warforged or anything. Did it have a socket?
Hang on, let's...
Not quite sure. Pretty good loot, Chad. From Skull himself.
Alright, so from the big man himself, I'm hearing pretty good loot.
I don't have a target.
450 ink pod. Oh, the trinket dropped. Okay.
Okay, so word from on high is pretty good loot. I feel like we're happy with that. And moving on to Queen's Court here. So the general sense I get from the raid so far is that I feel like we're getting good re-clear loot. I think that we've gotten, I know that I was told that Roger Brown got an enormous bow.
Oh, he got
first
it?
boss,
Nice.
and I think the entire room erupted. Roger Brown having notably bad loot luck over the past few tiers, like lamentably bad. People kind of sit around and talk about like, man, Roger Brown is just like loot cursed. That guy can't get anything. So I think when he got the big bow off the first boss, I think everyone was really excited for him. But sounding like so far, I think the re-clear has been promising in terms of the items that have been dropping so far. We got 2 more bosses that we can kill for loot before we run out of mythic re-clear bosses. I imagine we'll see the guys jump into heroic splits after that to continue farming gear for what appears to be a real doozy of a final boss this tier. And I think they'll need all the items they can get.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, the staff especially. How many coins do you think you guys have right now? They're obviously rolling on pretty much every boss if they need anything from it here on Mythic, and then maybe on maybe on Ashara as well.
Yeah, they got the 2. You get the 2 every week, so they've got at least 2. Some of the guys are probably sitting on at least 1
extra
coin if they had something they really want. Like I imagine most guys probably sit on 1 to try to grab a weapon, or if there's like a trinket that's make or break. But I don't know if there's any trinkets that can rise to that level. So my guess is everybody sat on like 1 coin to try to grab their best weapon on this re-clear, and then the 2 coins from the reset. So, but not a lot. He's certainly not sitting on a ton of coins at this point.
No.
And I'm sure there are plenty of guys in here that only have the 2 from the reset. But yeah, so re-clearing back to Queen's Court, that I think we expect to be, another fight that's potentially 1 or 2 shot on the re-clear. And I don't know how many attempts Limit got in on the Ashara last night. Certainly they got some, so the goal is to be back on Ashara tonight, get some good attempts in. As we mentioned earlier, Limit being the first guild to push Ashara below 50%. They got that done earlier today, and it promptly informed them that the caster ads on that fight will enrage immediately upon, actually I think the Myrmidons too actually, all the ads enrage upon hitting 50%, where on lower difficulties it was 40%. So fight Ashara is even more difficult than we previously thought. Which,
probably even worse.
Yes, so not boding well for a fast Ashara kill. I think that it sounded like from the reactions that Limit had, that definitely threw kind of a kink in their strategy. I think they were planning on like burning the boss down and kind of passively cleaving the ads. Now it sounds like they will have to focus the ads down and maybe sort of passively cleave the boss.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they called the raid shortly thereafter, and just going to bed is probably better at that point, figuring out what you want to do and what new approach you have to take to actually get through that stage of the fight. I'm not sure if that's going to affect their early stages of the fight, because obviously as you encounter more and more obstacles later into the fight, you might have to do comp changes, you might have to change up the early tactics you have had in mind, and yeah, it just doesn't bode well for any guild at this point. And every guild seems to have a lot of different comps. So I'm not sure if there's a big gap in superiority when it comes to guilds. JTH being one of those guilds that just plays like a main. Their tank, their blood DK tank, just mains DK. I believe he has 5 blood DKs available to him, and although blood DK not being so good on Ashara, they still push it because he's pretty famous blood DK.
Very famous blood DK, so gotta bring him. Alright, so Cian looks like some moving around to the comp here to get as many people in for loot as possible. This is definitely a boss that I think you just try to get ideal loot comps, not ideal kill comps, because I don't think you're expecting this fight to take a lot of time. So just get in the players that need the loot rather than the players that give you the best chance of killing this boss.
I'll just do the quests
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
got.
this is just more one of those mechanical fights, which has already been figured out I'm not sure if they fixed the charge. I didn't see anything about it in the hotfixes where the
Yeah, I don't remember seeing anything about that either. So
which is a bit weird, but at the same time it isn't, because all of the guilds that are already downed Queen's Court. If you hotfix it now, it's not really fair to the other guilds. So I'm assuming that's why Blizzard hasn't really stepped in and done any major changes yet. And this being one of those major things that just makes the fight so much easier. So yeah, we're just going for a comp here for
okay, so chat's saying it did get fixed, it just didn't make it into the patch notes.
Okay.
So we may be seeing slightly different. I don't know how much that'll add to the difficulty of Queen's Court. Previously, so for those that aren't aware of what we're talking about, there is a mechanic on Queen's Court, Frenetic Charge, where a random player is supposed to be selected, and one of the bosses will charge that player doing a lot of damage, but it can be split by anyone around you. So the idea is that whoever gets chosen then stands with other players, and you guys all absorb the damage. What ended up happening was players figured out that if you taunted the boss right before that ability went off, it would just target the person that was taunted, and if you used the tank for that, the tank could basically go soak it by themselves and not have to worry about splitting or doing anything like that. So definitely will add a bit more difficulty to the fight, but I don't know if that'll be a thing that's super difficult to cover on the re-clear.
And besides, if you don't take that into account, the guys have already figured out, like as I said earlier, all the weak auras and stuff for these fights. They figured out the tactics with the positioning and everything, which is very important in this fight. So yeah, it shouldn't really be that hard. Maybe a couple of pulls, maybe even a one shot actually.
So hopefully we don't spend a lot of time. All right, what do we have? Zalia pulling. Okay, so we have Zalia pulling up his replay. I'm not sure what he's. I'm not sure what he's demonstrating.
He gripped someone.
Stream. Okay, so.
Yeah, he gripped someone.
Okay, so he's probably demonstrating how he just saved someone's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably. I'm sure there's someone in.
He has a smile on his face, like, yeah, look at me.
If I have to guess, what I'm assuming happened is he gripped someone and saved their life, and that person in chat or in the voice comms was probably like, I mean, that grip was okay, man, but like,
yeah,
you know, well, stop patting yourself on the back.
Or like, you ruined it for me.
Right, and Zalia was probably like, hang on, let's go look at exactly how I saved your life, because clearly you're not going to take my word for it. So we got to watch the replay of Zalia, in fact, saving someone's life, and then he probably went back in chat and said, I told you, you dumb. Yes, I did, in fact, save your life. So sometimes as a healer, you have to do that. You have to really just let people know, like, they don't appreciate just how big of a play that you made to save them. Sometimes you really have to rub their face in it to let them know how lucky they are to have you playing with them and how much you do care about their well-being. And so I think that's what we were seeing.
Healers taking a lot of flack most of the times, which
all of the time,
which you probably know. Not a lot of appreciation for healers, but luckily we can have the POVs of our healers here to see, like, hey, they're actually doing a good job. And okay, so if I had to pick, to watch a tank, healer, or DPS for like the remainder of the day, just if I had to pick, I would watch a healer. And I think it's so fun to watch, and especially this crease.
Well, they usually tend to have the UIs that are most informative. A lot of times, and I don't even mean this in sort of the tongue-in-cheek, but oh no, we're sticking on the healer or the healer point of view for now.
Yeah.
But the healer points of view a lot of time are really good because their UI is set up to give them more information.
Yeah.
It's about what I thought.
A lot of times need that information more as a healer than you do as a DPS or tank. So a lot of times when you're watching like a DPS point of view, you'll see the raid frames kind of pushed off to the side of the screen, and the debuffs may not be super apparent because a lot of times as a DPS, it's not my job. I'm not going to worry about it.
And if you want to watch, if you watch a DPS, the only like fun information you can get out of that is the damage, right? And most of the time, good DPS players, at least of this tier, will have the damage numbers just hidden completely to make sure you can see more on the screen. And yeah, they don't really need that to boost their ego, I guess.
Yep. So we are seeing Method get ready to pull Queen's Court again on the re-clear. For those of you that are just joining us, we are doing the Mythic re-clear today. Method has killed every boss so far within at least 5 or at most 5 pulls. I know a lot of you curious about the Ashvane re-clears. That's one that is stymied a lot of guilds. Method killed it on their 5th pull, and then killed Orgazoa on the 2nd pull. So getting to Queen's Court here, one of the Queen's Court mechanics that was previously bugged, the frenetic charge, has been hotfixed. So that may add a new wrinkle to the fight for Method, but I don't expect it to be overly difficult. And we're seeing now, I think, Method just kind of playing with its comp to make sure that it gets as many people in that need loot as possible. Because that is the name of the game here, is we got to get our boys fat for the Ashara pulls later on tonight.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
The loot is back.
Yeah, and from what we've heard from the guys behind us throughout the day, it sounds like they're pretty happy with what they've gotten. Obviously, there's always something more you could covet as a player. I think no matter what drops, you could have like literally 455s drop for everyone in the raid, and they could say like, well, yeah, but like I could have coined a 455 too if I'd have just been more lucky. But so far, it sounds like the raid's pretty positive about the loot they've gotten, so hopefully that ends up being very helpful for Ashara progression. We will be doing Queen's Court and then Zakul. Hopefully Zakul, I think Zakul expected to be the biggest obstacle on this re-clear. But assuming we get both those dead in a timely fashion, I think we will see some heroic splits after this to get more gear pushback into the raid, and then hopefully Ashara attempts tonight.
Yeah, I think it would be well, it would be way different if they had seen more progress on Ashara yesterday. Then we probably wouldn't have seen too many heroic splits, and especially if the other guilds would have been pushing Ashara down way lower. But that is not the case. We do have time to actually gear up and make the fight hopefully easier. But yeah, so far loot has been very good, or pretty good. Hopefully we can get some more stuff from these two upcoming mythic bosses, and yeah, then heroic splits. So hopefully we're geared and decked out for tomorrow.
That's easy done.
And
just let them do it for me.
I think Limit has shown that Ashara is now it's possible to push her below 50%. Now just barely below 50%, but they did do it. It looks like Ashara fight is maybe even more difficult than we originally expected. So this is going to be, you know, a final boss that, barring some sweeping nerfs to the fight, you can expect every guild to be working on here for at least another probably 3 to 4 days. I guess I'd be shocked if we saw the boss die faster than that, even with a full reset of gear. It's just looking like a very difficult boss, a very tightly tuned boss from a damage and healing perspective, and certainly one that I think we could be working on this weekend even. So if you guys have been looking for a final boss that, you know, really tested a guild, you are going to get to see quite a bit of that this week.
Yeah, and I mean, the guys have already figured out a couple of things in the Ashara fight in the early stages. We've seen the beckon ability, kind of a counter to the beckon ability, where players would move towards Ashara, which is bad. You can use the demonic portal to kind of teleport back while in beckon. We've seen them use mass entanglement to route all of the small adds while dealing with one of those waves. 3 waves, and they deal with one of them pretty easy. It is nuking her down to 70%, but nuking her down to 50% is probably not going to work then, seeing as the mobs, the adds in rage below 50, so having to deal with those adds can prove pretty troublesome.
Yeah, so, and you know, we've talked a bit about, you know, comparing Ashara best pulls between guilds. Maybe not the best metric right now, because so much of that fight is, you know, like Ashara's health isn't necessarily the most important thing on that fight. There's a lot of there's other adds, there's wards that need to be empowered at various rates, or depowered, depending on whether it's corrupted or not. So a lot of other stuff going on in that fight, and there's a lot of information that doesn't get told by strictly how much health Ashara has left. So simply comparing, you know, one guild has it at, you know, 65%, one guild has it at 63%, not necessarily telling you a lot about where they're sitting progression-wise.
And it's one of those rough fights, because if you figure out the solution to one problem by changing something up, that might result in one of the other stages being just way harder. And Ashara having a lot of abilities, I think it's going to be very, very rough.
Yep. Certainly a fight where guilds are experimenting a ton with how they want to pull it, with the different tactics. Do you burn the boss and cleave the ads? Do you burn the ads and cleave the boss? How do you deal with those wards? And you know, there's even, you know, you can pick where Ashara stands to figure out which wards are going to be drained. And so just a lot of different things that you can prioritize.
It's such a long fight too.
Right.
So.
And that's the other thing, is you're not just going to be able to, you know, burn, like a lot of, on Jaina Progress, it was a lot of the same stuff, and then at the very end, a very quick burn phase, and you would just try to push through all the, like skip all the mechanics, and just try to burn the boss really fast. Looking like that's not going to be, you know, I was checking out a bit of the Limit stream earlier, and I actually heard one of them jokingly complain, like, Blizzard, stop making us do the boss the way you want us to do the boss. You know, I talked a bit yesterday on stream about how one of the real strategies for any high-level guild is being able to look at the dungeon journal and not necessarily get baited into doing the fight the way Blizzard wants you to do the fight. Because there will be, you know, when you look at the dungeon journal, Blizzard will give you a pretty obvious roadmap for how to do the boss, and you can very clearly see the way that some of the mechanics link together. But just because Blizzard is sort of telling you this is the way we intended the fight to work doesn't necessarily mean the fight actually works that way. And so a lot of times, you know, the dungeon journal will say, like, it's super important that you kill this ad, and then when you're actually doing it, you're like, is it really important that I kill this ad or not? Like, I feel like if I just ignore this thing, it's not going to do anything. So I feel like one of the skills you need to have as a high-level guild is figuring out on your own, independent of the dungeon journal, like what's the thing in this fight that's actually dangerous, which things are going to lead to success, and then coming up with your own sort of strategy, not allowing the dungeon journal to inform your strategy for you, because sometimes it can kind of bait you into suboptimal decisions. But it's looking like, based on a Ashara progression, that the dungeon journal is being pretty accurate. It's like, you need to do this and this and this and this, and they're finding out like, oh man, they're actually going to make us do this and this and this and this.
And I mean, top guilds are very good at finding loopholes,
yep.
As you say, but that does not really play in their favor for Ashara, because they will probably have to deal with every single mechanic. And now, like, they've been using the mass entanglement. But that might not really.
All right, so
one pull. All right,
yeah, not going to be one-shotting Queen's Court today. As we said, one of the mechanics of
that
the
was boring.
Charge got hot-fixed, made it a bit more difficult. Method may be experimenting with some new ways to do the fight here, but definitely not the way you want to start a Queen's Court pull there. So now this was of the sort of mid-tier bosses in this raid. This was, I think, by far the easiest for most guilds, so I don't expect to spend a lot of time wiping here, but not the best foot forward in this fight.
We'll save the wiping for Sakul, probably.
So I do see
I've done this fight
about
before.
break time. You know, speaking of, lunch has been here for a while, and at some point the guys probably do need to go grab lunch. So at some point they may decide to take an extended break to go eat. But my guess is they're going to try to stay glued to those chairs as long as possible until they are utterly famished.
At least Queens, and maybe a pull or two on Sakul to see if they can watch on it. But I think some pulls, and if they can't, you know, probably time for lunch.
And you know, it's an interesting thing having these 24/7 races, because food becomes actually like kind of a big deal for the way that we run these shows, and trying to feed an entire building's worth of people and the raiders themselves, and trying to make sure that you have, you know, hot food showing up, you know, at a fairly decent frequency.
Transition lag.
To eat, but you know, the raiders maybe don't take a break for another 3 hours, and you got different caster shifts coming and going, and production's got to eat, and so, you know, just having the whole food situation figured out here in the studio ends up becoming pretty difficult, because you do kind of have to have standardized food options, or else it becomes extraordinarily expensive. We actually did in the BOD Race to World First. We basically just took the Method credit card, and everyone was allowed to do like Uber Eats. They were just, you know, hey, whatever you want, whenever you want it, order it, and Method will, you know, cover it on the corporate card. And I think they probably took one look at the food bill from last time and about crapped their pants. So this time around, trying to do, you know, some catering, trying to make sure that you don't spend half your budget on feeding people, and But it does now pose some challenges for like the scheduling.
I'll never
when you
get
take
back
food
in
breaks
time.
and when people eat.
I heard there was a lot of milkshakes being ordered from Shake Shack.
There were a ton of milk.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing is that with this catering, I think has forced some of these raiders to eat maybe
Oh,
slightly
hello,
more
bow
normally than
upgrade.
they otherwise would. I know, very memorable diet from Kana, who just ordered like a liter of Greek yogurt every day. He would like just literally a tub of Greek yogurt. It would be like that, and what was the other thing? It was like Greek yogurt and an apple. And that was like his meal for the day. It was just like wolfing down this Greek yogurt and an apple.
Oh, that
it
would
was
make me
like,
feel so bad.
ugh, like I didn't want to see what his bathroom looked like each night because I imagine it was like a soft serve machine. But yeah, and then we did have a lot of milkshakes being ordered by the raid. That was
And the statistics aren't bad either.
One of the
That's
support guys
really
here, Trey,
nice.
who's done a fantastic job. Shout out Trey if you're watching the stream. Done a fantastic job of helping the Raiders out whenever they need it. He was the guy ordering a lot of food last time. And
Yay, I broke
400.
400.
Like a lot of orders for milkshakes.
We actually tried ordering. Me and Ted also
dear.
had the 6 to 9 shift.
I
this
also
morning,
have 180
and,
mana
we were
pearls
talking
if I want to
a lot
use them.
about, fast food in NA, and then we then Talos mentioned the Shake Shack thingy with a lot of milkshakes, and then we started craving milkshakes, right? So we started looking up stuff here, like, can you order milkshakes yet? No, you can only order them after 11. Anyway,
Yeah, I do have to say one of the things that's kind of weirded me out about Germany is like I don't feel like they have a lot of coffee shops that open early in the morning.
Nope.
And it's like, what are you
open
doing?
at like 11.
Yeah, what are you doing with a coffee shop that opens at like 10 or 11? Like, who even wants coffee at 10 or 11? I need coffee at like 6 in the morning. If you're not going to open until 10 or 11, just stay closed all day, man.
Yeah, I walked past the gas station close to our hotel and had coffee there every morning. It's not that good, but I mean it does the trick. And of course we have our performance drinks, which are doing a wonderful job of keeping me performing. Oh, look at this.
And conquers the man.
Hmm?
Smiley face heart. That must have been a tier 5 sub.
Probably.
But yeah, so shout out to one of our sponsors, runtime.gg. You can go to the website and use promo code METHOD to get a 10% discount. And I think if I heard right, they were maybe doing a special code. They've been doing some promotions throughout the week that are short time frame ones. I think there's going to be one for today's Reclear maybe. Ooh. So keep your guys' eyes peeled for that one.
And they also announced last week that they are now shipping to both NA and Canada. We had so many questions like, hey, do they ship to Canada?
Okay, that's kind of BM, man, because Canada is technically part of North America.
Okay, fair enough. I'm a EU pleb, so when I say NA, I just say it's not the US, and NA is kind of like they're the same thing for me.
This would be like me being up here and being like, so now they're shipping to like Europe and Sweden.
Okay. I'll lesson learned. Now they're shipping to the US and Canada.
All right,
is that better?
There we go.
Nice.
US and Canada. Woo! Whee! Geography lessons, yeah. All right, so getting ready for pull 2 on Queen's Court. And in case you guys thought that maybe the pulls happened faster on Reclear, that maybe like Method picked up the pace when they were doing their Mythic Reclear, this is a resounding no. Still taking our time between pulls, making sure we get everything absolutely right.
It's a tradition at this point.
Yep. So
I'll go hand that in.
Spend some time bonding between these pulls. Conquers the person. It looks like Sko maybe got chastised for assuming gender there. I believe the original message was conquers the man, and now it conquers the person. Conquers the human being. So some good lessons to remember there.
Yep. And hey, we're lasting more than 5 seconds in this fight right now.
All right, so improvement. We have improvement on Queen's Court. This is good, making progress. Now again, Queen's Court is a 2-boss fight. You want to make sure that you're keeping these bosses at least 21 yards apart, or else they gain a 99% damage reduction buff. So critical that you don't put 2 of them close to each other. You're seeing sparks spawn here, and if you're following Sko's raid UI, you can see in sort of the bottom right a bunch of boss bars coming out. They're going to burn one of these sparks down ASAP, and then one spark shortly after that, and then let one expire. Every time a spark dies or expires, it explodes, doing a ton of damage to the raid, so you You want to get one down ASAP, one down about halfway, and then let one expire on its own, and make sure you have good raid healing cooldowns for each of those explosions. Now we are seeing, oh, that looked like, what was that?
Huh?
A staff going out? Or
To get the
oh my God,
upgrade for
everyone's
that, I
trying to
gotta
kill
hit
the
a
short
heart
list.
level
Yeah, that was really fast.
54.
Maybe just a timing.
But yeah, maybe just Disc Priest ramp there. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was wild how
That was
much-
too fast for a Disc Priest ramp, I feel like.
Yeah, so anyway, we see Josh dying there, and still a ton of raid damage coming out. And it'll be interesting to see, I guess I don't think you could, okay, we're having more deaths, so certainly
why
looking
that
like
is.
you're not going to get, this may be them having to deal with, like my suspicion is that we are maybe having to deal with that frenetic charge now.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know that Method had a strategy that was really well defined for what to do with frenetic charge, since you could just bug it out with
I think
tank
that's going to
taunt.
work out a
So
little
maybe
bit better for
experimenting
me
with
in the long
some,
run. At
soaking
least until I get
strategies
some
for
upgrades.
that frenetic charge now.
I mean, I'm not quite sure. It doesn't see. Okay, here it is. So
Here's
if you wanna
frenetic
see it
charge
in action. It is on SCO though.
And
Oh no, it isn't. Never mind.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we're stable now though. There should be the battle rest should be on a timer. We're running 4 healers, so you don't necessarily need to get a rest off on Josh just yet.
Now, what I think you can do is I think the frenetic charge does move to a spot. Like if I remember right, the frenetic charge targets a player and then charges to that player's spot at the start of the charge. And if you have a movement ability that can get you out of there quickly, I don't know that anyone has to take damage from that. I might be making that up.
No, I think I saw that in one of the before I got here when I was studying the boss. I think I saw on the on like one of those tutorial videos that you could time it like precisely or something like that. So I think you may be right, but I'm not sure.
So
they patched it. Okay.
The you may be able to. Wait, that's how it works. I think they fixed it. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I think you may be able to still bait the charge and move out of it on your own. Like maybe nobody has to take the damage from the charge if you're fast enough with like blinks or disengages or things like that, even life grip maybe. But
I think when chat says fixed it, they're probably referring to the
tank taunting. Yeah.
Yeah, they may be trying to correct us on something that we already know.
They just did it. Life gripped out of charge. Okay, yeah. So my guess is that they're experimenting with ways to avoid taking charge damage at all. But obviously that's going to be, some classes don't have that on their. Some classes don't have the ability to move fast enough to get out of that. So you would probably have to coordinate life grips from the priests. Now we do have a ton of priests in this group, so there should be a lot of ability here to life grip like on a rotation if necessary. So that may be what we've done here, is set up a rotation where each of the priests takes turns life gripping the target of the charge, and then ideally you don't have to deal with that mechanic at all. But that may require a bit of practice. So maybe what we're seeing deaths to now.
Yeah, true. And have you checked out the left side? I mean, on your screen, they Save the Children.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Donations coming in earlier, and we've been hitting. Apparently we reached the 44,000 mark throughout the night, and it's now at 44.5. So it's looking pretty good to reach the 50,000 mark, which the goal is to reach 50,000, and then SCO has promised a workout stream at BlizzCon, a Method workout stream.
Good. So we are partnered with Save the Children for this Race to World First, a fantastic cause. I think everyone agrees that children are pretty.
I'm just going to pause the sound for this for a
So
sec.
we're working with Save the Children.
Okay, ladies and gents, I'm going to pretty much call it for now. As I said at the start of the stream, my subscription actually runs out tomorrow before I actually get home from work. So this is my last stream until I renew the subscription before the start of World of Warcraft Classic. The reason why I have chosen not to is somewhat on the personal side. There's basically a lot of content and stuff for me on other platforms and stuff that I want to have a look at. and I'm just not going to get enough time to juggle everything, and it's just like, alright, the subscription's ending, I may as well just let it end. I plan to come back for Classic anyway, so I will just renew it then. There's going to be points where I'm playing Classic where I'm just going to go, yeah, I need to give this a break for a while, jump into BFA for a bit, smash around a few things. I mean, if all else fails, right? I mean, I have an awful lot of alts to play. An awful lot. Some of them just need gearing. Others actually need leveling, and that will be painful, I think. However, the flying mount will now help the leveling a little bit. One of the new games I'm wanting to look at, which comes out 2 days time. It's the 24th today. Yeah, the 26th, which is Fire Emblem Three Houses for the Nintendo Switch console. So that'll be interesting. I'll probably do a YouTube look at for that. I'll also be continuing my Final Fantasy stuff. I will probably just play that a little bit more aggressively than I have been, due to the fact that I don't have this to play as well. But yeah, we'll see. I also have on the Nintendo Switch Super Mario Maker, which is feeling a little neglected at the moment. So yes. There's quite a lot of things for me to have a look at that, yeah, I just haven't had time to, so this will free up quite a large amount of time for me. It also allows me to fix up things on my YouTube account as well, which I have sort of not had the time to do as well. So yes, I will be back for Classic. I will be doing more World of Warcraft footage in a month's time, but for now it's just a little bit of a break. And if anybody here wants to actually see anything like the Mario Maker, bloody Fire Emblem Three Houses and stuff like that, if anyone wants to see that stuff on Twitch, there is a suggestions box there. Feel free to submit the suggestion saying you want to see this on Twitch, and I'll have a look at it every few days. Even if you're watching this in the VOD form, that box will still be there, so feel free to. Otherwise, you can find the YouTube version of this file, send a comment and put a comment in the YouTube box. But yes, until next time, I bid you farewell from World of Warcraft, and I shall see you all in the near future.